Welcome to the Blk Storytellers. My name is Kevin Marable, and today we have an amazing rising actor with us, Ronson Hawkins. How are you doing, man?
How you doing, man? I'm blessed. I'm happy to be here with you.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for joining, man.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Now, at the beginning of every interview, I like to ask a very simple question, but some might find it difficult to answer. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right, that question is, who is Ronson Hawkins?
Okay. Who is Ronson Hawkins? I have to start off by saying I am a son of God. Um, my friend, who's also on the show, Tobias Trevelyan, a mentor of mine, put it so
Hmm.
eloquently. He said, "I'm a child of God. I'm a son of God, child of God. I'm an earthly son to my mom and to my father. Rest in peace. May he rest in peace. I am a teacher. I've always, as a kid, the adults around me, because I grew up in the church, they always mentored me and felt that I had a gift for communicating and putting things in layman terms for people to understand and reaching people. And so later on, years later, that manifested for me because I teach. I teach beginner actors and intermediate actors. I'm a middle school theater teacher.
Wow.
So yeah, teaching, and then I'm a servant. I'm a servant. I serve for the goodness of people through the craft. That's the biggest. I always ask God to give me something to where I could be a vessel and serve in a way that was most impactful. And so far, I feel like it's been through this craft that He's blessed me with. So, and those things come with characteristics that I need. To be loving, to be understanding, to have wisdom, to be teachable, to be coachable. Um, I have to possess all those things in order to be someone to effectively serve for the goodness of people, for the greater good, and for His glory. So, yeah, that's that.
Wow. That's awesome, man. I'm gonna circle back on a few of those things throughout this interview, but
Absolutely.
yeah, I loved your answer. Now you're from Houston, Texas. Am I
Yes,
correct?
sir. Born and raised.
Born and raised. Born and raised. You've been acting since a very young age. Where did you get that drive and ambition to pursue acting?
So I've been acting since the third grade. Started off at Windsor Village Elementary. Shout out to them. I started actually in oratory competitions. Right.
Mm.
So there are these competitions here in Texas called United Interscholastic League, the United Interscholastic League, or UIL for short. A lot of my Texas people don't know what I'm talking about. But in schools, they have competitions in various things. They have competitions, UIL for cheer, UIL for different things. And one of those things was speech. They have UIL for theater, but this was for oratory competition. So in the third grade, my PE coach, shout out to Mr. Duncan, he gave me, and Mr. Green, they both gave me a piece of paper with a speech on it. And they told me, say it.
Mm.
And I said it. And they were like, wow, you're pretty good. And so they entered me into UIL oratory competitions. And that was where I got my love for, that was like my earliest experience of being performative and performing and connecting with a crowd and communicating effectively and just feeling the energy of the reaction from the people in the room. And so
Yeah.
um, I did that. And then the funny thing is, it took me on, to a journey in the fourth grade. That same year, I got sixth place my first competition, and it kept going, and I started just getting first and first and first. And before the second year, my fourth grade year, at one of the competitions, a teacher from another school had seen me, Carla Michelle Brown. Shout out to her, a huge mentor for me. Starting off, she was like, "I want you to come speak on my oratory team. I want you to come be on my team and compete." So I went to McGregor Elementary and competed. And that year I competed in the MLK oratory competition. It was one of the biggest competitions in Houston for Martin Luther King speeches for middle, and I competed against like 20 schools, and I won second out of all those schools. And it took me everywhere around Houston. Good Morning America. It was great, and that's where I learned to man, work a crowd, connect with people. And that, the year after that, I did my first musical, The Wiz. And that's where I also found out that I had, this relativity to music and I could sing.
Right.
So
But well, I'm gonna stop you there because I have some questions about that a
absolutely.
little later. But yeah, that's interesting, man. But I wanna stay uh, talking about Houston for just a second.
Absolutely.
What is the current scene like for acting in Houston?
It's very it's collaborative. It's collaborative. It's people wanting to collaborate to make some art.
Hmm.
You know, I feel like Houston is for the budding actor who who wants to get who wants to build traction, who wants to get the experience. Acting is a contact sport. A lot of times
Right.
the best way to do it is kind of like football. The best way to learn is to put the pads on and hit. You can practice and everything without the pads, but when it's time for that scrimmage, you got to put those pads on and you got to hit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's what Houston, that's what Houston's been for me.
Mhm.
Um, that I started off in the theater scene here, amazing theater scene. Because I came from HSPVA, High School for the Performing and Visual Arts. So I started off in theater, and so Houston, I went from theater to doing film here, and that's what it was for me. It was like before I could go anywhere else, before I could want to go to Atlanta or New York or anywhere. An acting mentor of mine told me, "Hey, you need to build," and I built here.
Mhm.
I built that here, and so I would say for a lot of my students and people who are like, I want to get into it, I tell them, hit the ground running. And Houston is there's always a casting call. I'm connected to people here who are always giving people opportunities to be on set, to be on a set, and to experience the characteristics of filmmaking, even if it's at a foundational level. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Because to me,
Mhm.
the independent level is that's where those stripes are earned. You have to get there before you make it in the independent level. You can make it, anywhere, and you already have those foundational things that prepare you for when you get to SAG projects and when you get on a union set. Like this is where
Right.
that starts. So that's what the Houston film scene is like.
Okay. Now, are there a lot of opportunities there when it comes to landing such roles, for TV and film, or is this, to your point, is it a place where you go to learn and grow, and then once you've gotten to, the intermediate and the advanced in the upper levels, at that point you start to land these jobs, or some of these roles, or is there opportunity there to where you can actually pick up roles early on and start there?
Yeah. So it really just it depends on everyone's journey. It's different.
Mhm.
Um, I would say that Houston is the first off the agency that I'm here with in Houston. It's a lot of commercial. Houston is
Okay.
is is very commercial based. I get
Yeah.
a lot of commercial work here, um, which is dope. Like Dairy Queen, Salesforce. I've had commercials like that under my belt. Right
Yeah.
here,
I've, I've seen them. Yeah.
yeah, like here, right. And so, but I also booked the project where I met Tobias. We shot that in Salisbury, North Carolina. I booked that from here.
Okay.
That was for Hallmark, right? Which just goes into the mechanics of sending in self tapes and stuff. So I would say, from my experience, a lot of commercial stuff is here. As far as theatrical, a lot of that is outside of here. Houston
Yeah.
is to me is a place, and I know for me that's how it's been. Where I've built a good resume here, so that I wouldn't have to go to those places with nothing. Because you have to go prepared. You have to go with something. A lot of the work that people see me do it's been here,
Mhm.
right? It's been here. So I would say, yeah, Houston is more for commercial. It's more for building that resume with independent opportunities. But going outside is more of where you see theatrical. And a lot of actors that I know do that. They're here for a good amount of time, and when they feel like they've made their mark here, then they go. So
Yeah.
yeah.
What would you say as far as the independent scene, outside of major television, and film? Is there a large market for independent projects in Houston?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, there are definitely a couple of I mean, not a couple, a lot of opportunities here as far as the independent scene, because that's the main thing. I mean, when you start off as a filmmaker, that's where you're starting. When you're starting off as an actor, that's where you're
Mhm.
starting. You know,
Yeah.
you're starting on those lower tier sets. Foundational things that you get are going to take you to be able to go on a SAG set, like I said. But yeah, Houston is definitely that, especially with the rising of Tubi and platforms that shine light on independent filmmaking, and it gives us this platform.
Yeah.
Houston has definitely been the hub for a lot of independent films that I'm glad and blessed to say that I've been able to be a part of.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. It just, that's a question that kind of strikes me, and intrigues me a little bit, because with such a huge major city like Houston, Texas, and then also a few of the other actors that I've spoken to from Dallas and the Fort Worth area. Um, Outside of the independent realm, there's really not a there's really no infrastructure there for actors, and filmmakers. But it's such a major market that you would think that there would already be something set there, and it's not. So of course,
Yeah,
the independent side of things is really taking off, because that fills that void of, major networks not being in those cities. Um, and also, a few people have given you praise, you specifically, when we spoke to them in their interview, or even just kind of off script a little bit. Um,
yeah, wow.
why do you think other actors hold you in such high regard when they meet you?
uh, um, man, I tell people, man, I try to be kind.
Mm,
You got to be kind.
mm,
I try to be a servant. I try to uphold the identity of I try to have those Christ-like characteristics, because that gives you the longevity here. It takes you far,
mm,
um, and most importantly, I tell people it's about the work.
mm,
Work begets more work. It's about the work, and I always try to lead with work that I'm proud of, and I try to lead with good work. And so I always tell actors, when it's noisy around you and it's chaotic and you feel like all the walls are closing in and everything's coming down and you're worrying about this and that and the business of all that, always stand on the work,
yeah.
because as long as you put forth good work, work begets more work, and
Mm,
it creates that, people admire somebody who puts themselves in the craft and in the work.
mm,
And you couple that with being someone that creates a conducive, I call it an atmosphere, not an atmosphere, but an atmosphere. Like, I want to create a conducive atmosphere for people to want to work with me.
right.
And you put those two things together, and I feel like I've always tried to do that because that's just how I was taught.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, okay. Okay. Now, speaking of your teaching, not you teaching just yet, but speaking of how you were taught, and maybe some of the things that you were taught, let's talk a little bit about your actor training, and you coming up and learning how to act. Where did you go outside of the high school that you mentioned? Did you attend theater? Did you do any type of acting classes, or any type of acting training? Do you have a trainer?
Honestly, no. My When I tell you my high school, it was a blessing, and I always shout them out because all of my professors were. I had a professor, Stephanie Wack. She was from NYU Tisch. She came from NYU Tisch. Cynthia Ogden was another professor of acting coach and teacher of mine at the high school. The high school I went to was a prestigious liberal arts high school in Houston. And the, funny enough, um, um, Chandra Wilson from Grey's Anatomy,
Yeah.
she went to that high school
Okay.
and
Wow.
she trained. And so my senior year, I actually ended up getting a scholarship from her because she would always go and give a scholarship to graduating seniors. And I auditioned for a scholarship and I went to Texas Southern University on scholarship from Chandra Wilson. But I say that to say, high school, the 4 years in high school were the most intensive training years of my life. And ever since then, um, lately I've wanted to get back into the swing of training and finding a coach and sharpening up. But man, when I tell you those 4 years, I mean, it went from the contemporary realism to classical pieces to Tartuffe to Moliere to the classics to comedy, um, comedy of manners. Um, like I said, contemporary realism, musicals. I everything Sanford Meisner technique, Stanislavski, Uta Hagen. Those 4 years, and I was just in high school. We
Wow.
had intensive training. So when I went to college, I went with that. A lot of us graduated high school and started working
Mm.
like immediately. Um, when I got out of high school and I went to college, I started professional theater.
Yeah.
So that training was not saying it was all that I need now because I'm always evolving, but
Hmm.
for a while, that's what's really gotten me here
Hmm.
because the training never left. It was so intense. It never left my body. Like it's in my bones.
Yeah. Yeah. And to be so well versed at the high school level and to be able to take that on, on the collegiate level, and also to get into theater, and you were probably pretty seasoned at that point to where you didn't, you didn't have to be shown too many things up front, to where they had to, work with you. You probably,
Yeah.
on the role and was able to fall right into it immediately.
I was always a lead in college. I was always a lead.
It's crazy, man. Not everybody gets that type of education, uh, in particular to the acting world. A lot of times, you know, that will follow them, in the college years or maybe even after college. When once they get into theater, then that's when they start to pick up the strengths of acting.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And what was the name of the school again? Houston Performing Visual Arts.
The High School for the Performing and Visual Arts, or HSPVA.
HSPVA. Okay. Uh,
Yes. Yes, sir.
and so, being that that's the performing arts high school, it still teaches you all the traditional high school stuff as well, right? Or is it structured a little different?
So we would have 3 hours of academics, and then we would break, and we would have 3 hours of our art every day. So it was
Wow.
like it was like fame. You would walk in, and someone would be playing a cello in the hallway. Maybe a dancer would be doing an 8 count, or maybe we'd be in the commons. The theater students would be in the commons rehearsing. Like it was like that. It was like fame, like literally. Yeah,
Wow. Yeah, I've never heard they don't have schools like that here, where I live. So I've never heard of that, and that's pretty interesting that you get that type. You're exposed to that at such a young age, and it becomes normal to you. So some of the things that you probably feel like are normal, to the people who have to relocate and learn how to act, and they're like, how did how are you such a natural at your age?
man. When I tell you it was a blessing, it was a blessing to begin. It wasn't until I like left to where I realized like everything that I got,
Hmm.
like my friends were going to class, and I'm like, man, when we talked about I talked about Meisner. We were taught Meisner, and we did repetition in high school.
Yeah.
In high school, like people were. When I tell you, it was so intense. A lot of my class, I had a I had a small class to audition for the school. Not everyone made it. I had a small class, and probably by our senior year, half of my class had dropped out because it was
Wow.
so intense. Like it
Hmm.
was really intense. And plus it was during high school where there's a part in your life where you're figuring out who you are and you're just developing socially. And it's like sometimes our teachers would forget that we were just kids. We were
Right.
just kids
They
learning
they
these.
they push you, and they, it was probably on another level, another level.
Oh yeah, but I was
Yeah.
grateful when I got out. I was like, man, I'm so great they cracked the whip on us, because
Mhm.
I wouldn't
Mhm.
be here and I wouldn't be as well equipped as I am now. So yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so now you're known for the season, SZN,
Yes, sir.
Red Box, Masquerade, and To Her with Love. Can you talk a little bit about any of those four projects? I'll let you pick.
So the red box was one of the first ones that I did. Shout out to Ike for that opportunity. Now the season, man, the season was like the one where it was my breakout. It was my
Okay.
breakout. This was one of the first things that I did when I first started film here.
Mhm.
And Malcolm Dwayne Carter, shout out to him, the writer. He was also in it. Um, a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, connected us, and he had sent out a casting call. I followed him on IG, sent out a casting call, and so I sent in a tape, and it was one of the first self tapes I sent in. It was one of the first, like, going through the mechanics of what it was like to be cast. I remember the email. He was like, "Congratulations, you got the role." All of that, and that was my breakout, and that was where I met some dope actors here. And that, from then on, it really put people's eyes on me.
Mhm.
People were like, "Who?" It was pretty much because we were me, Sean Burns, another amazing actor, Dakara Kill, another amazing actor here. We were a part of the newer generation of the show,
Right.
so we were new on the scene. So it definitely helped me get solidified. Masquerade, man, um, Masquerade was after To Her with Love, and I go to that because that one was my first lead in a
Yeah.
film. All the films that I've done prior, I was always supporting,
Mhm.
or co-lead, but I was never like number one on the call sheet.
Right.
So, shout out to Justin Williams, amazing writer, director. He, man, it was crazy because he reached out to me on Instagram and was like, "Hey, I've seen your work. I have a movie that I'm doing, and I think you'd be perfect for the role of
Yeah.
Bryson Wilson." And man, I called him that night, and me and my mom were in the car with each other Ubering, and I called her that night. I mean, I called him that night, and we were on the phone, and the energy was great, and so we were locked in. And that's coming out. He's still shopping that around, but I mean, it's for my
Okay.
first lead. It was one of the best things ever. So yeah,
Yeah. And then To Her with Love, just real quick, briefly.
To Her with Love. So this was, I signed with my agents like 2 years ago. Up until then, I had just been booking commercial stuff, and voiceover work because I'm a voiceover actor as well. But I
Yeah.
got an audition in for To Her with Love, and I met up with Malcolm. Funny enough, Malcolm at the studio that he was at the time, and I said, "Man, I need your help with this self tape." I sent in the self tape, and I had a beard. Funny story, I had a beard on my face,
Mhm.
so I sent in the self tape, and then months later, weeks later, I was actually on set for another independent project, and I got a call from my agency, and they said, "Hey, Ronson, so casting really liked you for To Her with Love, but the director is having a hard time seeing you as 18 and 17.
Yeah.
Do you have any headshots that were?" I said, "I'm gonna get my beard shaved off now." I made the call. I hit on my barber like in 30 minutes. I went to go get my beard shaved off. I sent in another slate, and probably 3 days later, 2 days later, I got the role offer for Leon in To Her with Love. And it was crazy because when they sent us the script or sent us all the info, I looked at the email chain and I saw Tobias's name, and I freaked out because I was like, I was like, what? Um, so yeah, that's how To Her with Love happened. We ended up shooting for 3 weeks in Salisbury, North Carolina. It was my first SAG project.
Wow. Wow.
Yep.
And so what was that experience like, for To Her with Love once you got on set and you guys began filming?
Oh, I was. It was overwhelmed in a good way. You get offset. Because if on the independent aspect, you're used to a certain level, right? It's all about elevation, and you go there, and the treatment is different. I mean, it's a different mechanics. My first day of working, I go from the hotel onto a shuttle, and there are two PAs with earpieces, like, "We got talent flying in, we got talent flying in." And I'm like, they're talking about me. you know? And we're walking, and we walk on the funny thing enough is my first day of work was with Tobias. So I'm
Wow.
excited. And so
Yeah.
we're walking up on this house where we're shooting this first scene, and it's a bunch of PAs, a bunch of camera people, cam ops. It's the DP Matt Bell standing over there. It's the director, Stan. It's everybody, and so everyone's going around. So it was overwhelming, but of course, like I always say, it's all about the work.
Yeah.
And I
Hmm.
prepared. So when I got there, it's nothing to fret about. I just went in and I did the work and I prepared, and people noticed.
Yeah.
People on set, they noticed, and they asked me where I was from, and I was like,
Mm.
I'm from Houston, Texas, and if you think I'm cold, I got homies back home who I try to put my people on. So
Right.
yeah, it was dope though. It was dope experience.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I'm sure it was very surreal for you, but as you said, you got there, you executed without a problem, without a hitch, and you let people know, who you are and what you do, and just the simple fact of them asking, where are you from, like, all of those things are the reason why I said earlier, people kind of place you in a high regard, and I've heard your name, floating around a few times, um, and so that's a big deal, man. You have a lot of people talking, that's for sure. Um,
All glory to God, man.
yeah, most definitely. Um, you also said earlier that you do voice acting, and I wanted to point out that you were a voice actor for a show called Saiki Reload Zero In. I don't know if I
Yes.
said that correctly.
Taiki Reload Zero, yeah.
Okay, but it's anime. Um, how did you land that role?
My agents, man. So funny enough, the first thing that I did with my agents was it was for a tollway tax authority company in Dallas, for
Mm,
a tollway company. But that was just an audition. But further on down the road, there was a general casting call, an open casting call at a anime production company in Houston called Sentai Filmworks. It's been bought out by AMC, so it's now with AMC. But
okay,
I went into the studio, um, and they had the screen up. They have a screen where it's the cartoon, and
right,
they play it, but it's Japanese dubbed.
yeah,
And then they have the other side where there's a script and they have a timestamp.
hmm,
And so the audio director at the time just directed me through it, and I did the scene, and he was like, "Are you sure this is your first time doing this?" I said, "Yeah, this is my first time doing this." And immediately, I ended up getting an email that they wanted me to come in and do some miscellaneous voices,
right,
and that was it. And so I've done about 3 series. I was a recurring role in one of them, called Yurusei Yatsura. And I've gotten to audition for I auditioned for the Justice League when it was in like the
wow,
beginning version. I was Black Lightning's son.
yeah.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool ride.
That's dope. And I talked to another voice actor or voice actress, and she's done some things for Disney as well. She actually was one of the voices. It wasn't a major role, but she was a voice in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh,
Um,
dope.
yeah, but I was also telling her and a couple other people who I felt like their voice was strong enough that you can take on these, voice acting roles in between projects when you're actually in front of camera, and this will actually help continue your career on. You can actually have a very lengthy career doing voice acting, and people don't necessarily have to see your face; they can know
No,
your voice all day, and you can live comfortably. You can go out to the store, to the mall, go on vacation when you want to, and nobody would ever know. But
Oh, absolutely. I tell people that I go back and forth. If
Mm.
I'm either filming or I'm in the studio because they call me in to audition for a video game or another series that they're revamping. So yeah,
Okay. So you do video games too, man. That's dope. Yeah.
yes, sir.
Wow. Now you can sing as well. And your first musical was in the fourth grade. I read that. And I wanted to know: are you currently involved in any musical theater, or you haven't done anything musically in a while?
So funny enough, I connected with an agent. I got my agents recently sent me an audition.
Mm.
And it was it's actually shout out to the Talent Connect. Um,
Oh,
yeah, I'm with them. Um,
okay.
got connected with them through Tobias.
Yeah.
He's been man. He's an awesome mentor of mine. Man, got an audition for Hamilton,
Yeah.
and it was a bit. It was like, here's the thing. I've always done musical theater, but going into film, um there's just certain levels of things, and so film wasn't really requiring that of me. But when I got that audition, I had to knock the cobwebs off. It had been a while since I'd looked at sheet music. It had been a while since I'd flexed the muscle of maintaining emotion while singing, or my
Mhm.
voice.
Mhm.
I sing regularly. I consider myself a musical person
Yeah.
and musically inclined. But when I did that audition, it definitely knocked the cobwebs off. I was like, man, but it was good. I mean, it was a strong audition, and I was
Yeah.
told by my agent that it was a strong audition. But yeah, that was the most recent thing I've done musically. So hopefully, I get in the future, near future, I get to do something else musically.
Yeah, I saw one of your self tapes, and you were actually singing as part of your audition, and I was impressed. It really sounded like you belonged on stage and on theater, and I can also see you doing, you know, musicals for film. They don't really do too many musicals for television, but definitely musicals in film.
Thank you, appreciate it. First
I
off, thank.
wanted to highlight that because not all actors can sing. Not all actors have that trifecta, or you know, uh, have multiple talents that they can showcase. So I wanted to make sure that I highlighted that about you, because you have strengths in in acting and in
Thank
singing.
you, thank you, thank you.
um, Now you do self tape sessions with other actors, and I would assume that that's a part of your teaching, outside of you teaching middle school.
Absolutely.
What's all involved in that?
So, it what really is involved in that is meeting up with the actors, and we really break down the script. We break
Mm.
down the sides. We build. We go over the given circumstances. We go over the moment before. I'm a very cerebral actor, so I'm breaking down those sides, and I'm taking what's on the page to create what's not on the page to help me put more on the page. You know,
Right.
and so a lot of times I tell my students it's like we're in psychosis. We talk through it,
Mm.
and then we go into choices. We go into breaking it down and connecting it to the mechanics of who we are naturally under those given circumstances. I always say acting is living truthfully under imaginary circumstances.
Right.
So we work that. We find what that is for us, and then we put it on tape. 3 takes, 3 take maximum. We
Mhm.
submit and forget, and that's it. That's my motto. That's how I
Yeah.
work with my students, and that's what that looks like.
Submit and forget.
Submit and forget. That's what I do.
um,
Submit and forget.
right. You also said another statement in one of your sessions. You said silence has to be earned.
Yes.
What what does that mean?
Oh, silence has to be earned. Silence a lot of times can be louder than dialogue.
Mm.
Um, but you have to sit in it to earn it. You have to honor it. To earn the powerful effect of what silence can do, you have to honor it. Um, and that's just a technical thing with beats, taking
Right.
that time to let stuff breathe. A lot of times in dialogue, actors want to rush through
Yeah.
beautiful moments where it's like, man, take that beat. I say something called pinch and ouch. If I pinch you, you're gonna ouch, right? There's something, you don't do something unless somebody does something to you in the scene to make you do something. So that's
Right.
just having those are the mechanics of having a scene partner. So a lot
Mhm.
of the times, if somebody gives you a beautiful pinch or they give you something beautiful to make you do something, don't rush. A lot of
Mhm.
times you sit in it because the silence in that moment has so much more power. Is so much more powerful than the words after that. After that silence, and they work together in tandem. So that's why I tell people silence is earned. To be able to act with minimal words and just silence takes a lot of skill.
Yes, it does, and
It takes skill.
you can convey a lot in silence,
Yes,
facial expression, with motion, movement, all types of things. And I think we kind of learn that from the audience perspective. I think one of the best examples of that, long term, while you're watching a feature length film, is probably A Quiet Place. uh, they executed that perfectly, where not much dialogue is said, but you're watching a almost 2 hour movie and you're captivated the entire time, and a lot of the movie is silent.
that was a horror movie, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and now we're working on, this is the third iteration of A Quiet Place, with Lupita Nyong'o.
yeah.
But yeah, so I can see that, where silence is earned, and you
Absolutely.
can really do a lot in within that.
I tell people it takes for an actor, it takes efficiency to hit a small target.
Mm,
Which is why for actors, when people say in school they would tell us no small roles, only small actors, it was a very foundational, elementary, tenet or rule. But I
right.
didn't understand the mechanics of it until I really went through all of the technical things I went through to realize that it takes a person of proficiency to hit a small target. If you have a under five or five lines, you can really impact the audience with a little bit of meat on the bone
Mm,
you know, and that takes skill. So I feel like every actor's ability to do that is only a testament to their training and to their ability. So
right.
be able to do it. There are no small roles. You can give me a scene with no lines, or you can give me a scene with minimal lines, you know, and
Mm,
I'm still gonna have the same prep work. I'm still gonna do what I need to do and work my objective. You know, it's gonna make it more difficult, but it's just much more fun. Yeah.
wow. Um, where did you learn to be such a great actor to the point to where you can actually help other actors? Is it just you're just showing them what you've learned through your experience, or have you developed actual teaching methods that help the actor that maybe they otherwise wouldn't get just by studying some of the other acting techniques?
It's a combination. I've always been able to break stuff down, like I said, to people in layman's terms to where they can understand. It takes
Mm,
a specific language to talk to an actor.
mm,
Acting is a very abstract thing, and sometimes when you hear, I'll be talking to my students, um, and I call it having aha moments because that's how I was taught. And a lot of actors, once you say something that triggers that switch and gives them an aha moment, I realized that it takes a specific language and operative words to talk to an actor. And so I think it's really me. It's a combination of things. In acting, you can steal. It's the only profession where you can steal stuff, and it's like it's cool. My acting teacher Stephanie Wax in high school, that was the one that graduated from NYU Tisch. She would always say, "Steal it." She'd be like, "Steal it." We'd be doing first ups and second ups and third ups, and that's where we're putting monologues up in front of everybody, and she's critiquing us, but we're doing it every week. And she would say, "Steal that, steal that." And so it's been a combination of things that I've learned, and coupling that with being able to speak that actor language.
mhm,
With the students I've worked with, they all come out with a much better understanding of everything, of every aspect of technique. And so at first I was like, really? I was getting confirmations from my mentors and people around me saying you should do it. And of course, oftentimes we doubt ourselves, or insecurity creeps in. But I feel like God gives multiple confirmations, and so I just stepped out on faith and walked in that purpose.
right.
And my mom, who's a huge part of my camp, championed me and pushed me to do it. And actors come back to me and tell me that I've been a help to them, and so
Mhm.
that's it pushed me and it tested me for it to be, true. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty much it.
Have you had any actors yet who you've taught come back to you and say what you've shown me and what I've learned with the methods that you've taught me or been able to explain to me um, have helped me land such and such role? Have you had that experience yet?
Absolutely. I had an actress hit me up. She was one of my first students, and she was always in class, always would work with me. And she recently booked her first two projects. She went to open call and
Wow.
booked. I just had an actress that I worked with, Shantae. She's amazing. And I just worked with her. I worked with her on two tapes, and she would always tell me when I first worked with her that the coach that she had went through that she had went to at the time, I don't know the coach's name, but she just felt like she wasn't getting something. And then when she worked with me, it changed her whole outlook of how to break down a script. So she said she used that throughout, and it's always been a help. And so now she's like, you give me a new outlook on how to make choices on tape, because you got to book with tapes. That's the industry standard. It's going to be a while before we get back in the room.
Yeah.
On the SAG level, you're going to have to book through tape. You got to book the room, right? And
Yeah.
so she was like, you've opened my eyes with the choices, and you still give me good choices that I don't think about whenever we meet and we work on something, and it amazes me. And she's like, you've really helped me. Um, yeah, I've had a couple other students be like, man, I wasn't booking stuff, but now I'm speaking. I got speaking roles now. Thank
Right.
you. So yeah, man, it's I just stick with it, and I the best knowledge is the knowledge that's shared, not kept a secret.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely, man. That's part of the reason why we're doing what we're doing. The reason why I'm asking the questions that I'm asking. Um,
absolutely,
because I don't believe in gatekeeping, especially for our community. We got to figure out
absolutely,
ways to pull each other up and share the knowledge, man. The knowledge is the key that will get us through the door. It doesn't matter what door that is and what industry that is. It's the knowledge is the factor that we're missing. So
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely.
I caught a scene that you posted on your social media, and you were in a film called Fight Boy. Can you tell me what that film is about and your role in it?
So, shout out to Christian and Orlando Briones, the Briones brothers, Filmatic. They're dope. So this scene is basically about Boy, that's the main character, and he goes to a high school reunion,
Mhm.
and in his high school reunion, he sees five guys who they didn't have the best place in his past, and they actually bullied him. But
Mhm.
he goes and he sees them, and one of his main henchmen has a video of and this is me saying the movie without telling all of it, but he shows him a video of when they jumped him, and the dude put auto tune over it. He put it on the internet, and so there's this video going around of these five guys jumping Boy, the main character, and
Yeah.
so of course he doesn't think anything of it, and he wants to go home to his son, who is his pride and his joy, and he goes home, and his son says, "Dad, look at this," and his son is seeing the viral video,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Oh, I can't just let these guys. Like, I got to prove to my son, like, I can't just let these guys walk all over me."
Right.
So his friend, played by Javier Frutos, the amazing Javier Frutos, hilarious guy. He ends up, because he's drunk, he sends a text message to all of the bullies saying, "Let's fight." Now, in Texas, there's something called the mutual combat law. It's a real thing where you can legally fight someone if
Really?
you both agree and there's a cop present and nothing gets there are no damages. You can legally fight people. It's called the mutual combat law. You can legally fight people in Texas, legally.
That's
And
crazy.
so the movie is pretty much chronicles him. He sends out this invitation, who wants to fight? Everyone accepts, and at first he's like, "No, I can't do it," and then he says, "Yeah." And so the first fight is with me, Terry, who
Mhm.
is a bus driver.
Yeah.
So I'm the first person that he fights.
Yeah, that's the scene that I saw. But that's crazy that there's a fight law in Texas.
Yeah, mutual combat law. We didn't know, but Orlando and Christian were like, "Yeah, that's a thing." So we were like, "Oh, that's funny."
They need to call it to catch a fair one law.
Yeah, the show. Yeah, yeah.
Catch these hands. All right. So, what are some of the types of roles that you're looking for?
Man, so my big goal is to get a reoccurring role. To be a series regular on either a medical drama
Mhm.
or a crime drama. I've
Okay.
always wanted to go for playing a doctor or a cop or a lawyer or a detective. Um, those are like the type of roles that I want, or a superhero. That's like the top.
Yeah.
That's the
No,
top.
that's a little extreme from the doctor and the lawyer and the cop.
Man,
However,
I auditioned for Spider-Man: Homecoming
did
when I
you
was in high school for the one with Tom Holland for his sidekick. I
really?
auditioned for that in 2017 in high school, and
Wow.
when I flew out to New York for a day and did that audition. Didn't get it, but it was like at that moment I said, "Oh, I've touched the superhero verse." So it's two balanced. It's like either those things or superhero. Those are like two main goals as an actor that I aspire to reach.
Right. But it doesn't have to necessarily be like a DC Comics or Marvel superhero. It can be a superhero in a sense of, you know, all superheroes are kind of like everyday
Yeah,
people who, are vigilantes by night or, fight crime by night, that type of deal. But
absolutely.
uh, yeah, we haven't really had, besides Luke Cage, we haven't really had like a hood superhero or
No, we haven't. we we haven't.
need that.
Yeah, we haven't. Like I want that. I feel like representation is important.
Yeah,
And so, plus I just feel like that reaches a different level of the craft to be in those stories. I love superhero stories.
yeah.
I love the Flash, Superwoman, all those things. I love them.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
okay. So let me ask you: are you a DC Comics or a Marvel Comics fan,
I
or
don't
does it?
even the funny thing is I don't know the difference between the two. I mean,
Okay,
I just like a lot of stuff on the CW, like a lot of the superhero things on the CW I love
the
to
DC,
watch.
right?
Um, you
And those
know,
are DC projects. Yeah,
yeah, like I love that, like I have that archetype of the type of work. Honestly, it's just anything superhero. I mean, I as an actor, I have those different roles that I want to play. Like I have the detective, the cop, the doctor, or the
yeah,
all American. I would love to be on a show like that.
yeah.
um, All American, where I'm one of the younger ones,
Hmm.
or superhero, or an extreme sort of like Jeffrey Dahmer. And
Okay.
I played a role like that recently called Tricks. It's coming out soon, and I kind of referenced him for my preparation. I kind of prepped to prep for that. But yeah,
Wow.
those are pretty much my. I try to have range, man.
Yeah.
I try to have range.
I can
Um,
see that. I can see that within from what I was able to watch online. I can definitely get that, and I also see that you lean more towards the dramatic roles and the more serious work. That's probably where your strong suit is, and you probably feel the most comfortable within that. I can see that.
I love comedy too. I now the funny thing is people people think that like I love comedy. And I've played comedic roles, and people are like, man, like my acting mentor is like, man, you're really funny. You should explore comedy more.
Yeah.
Comedy isn't difficult to me. I hear a lot of beginner actors say, "Oh, I'm not funny. I'm not funny," and it's the same technique. It's like, don't try to be funny. Let the script do the work.
Right. Yeah. Hmm.
Of you play it straight, it's gonna be funny. Just like
Hmm.
Shelley Berman. I mean, Shelley Berman is an old comedian. I listen to his stuff, and he doesn't sell it. He's naturally just funny. And so yeah, I would like to explore more comedy. For a while, I was more dramatic,
Hmm.
prone, but lately, last couple of years, I've been blessed to do some comedic projects, and so I would love to do more. comedy.
Okay.
So
Now,
Masquerade was my first like it was a comedy. It
okay.
was something you would consider like a dramedy,
Okay, gotcha. So,
right?
would you say you were on the comedy side? Would you say your acting is more on the like dry humor, or are you more of the animated, or are you somewhere in between? Like, do you like super bad? You know,
Super
uh,
bad, like super
Junior High
bad,
School?
Big Bang Theory,
Okay,
that type of comedy, like the
yeah,
two camera comedy, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like those network comedy shows where there's two cameras, Miss Pat, like that type of more dramatic comedy, physical comedy. Masquerade is probably the most physical. Like that's where I found out that I was more of a physical comedian.
okay,
Unfinished Business was also one where I was it was physical comedy for me too. It was comedic.
yeah,
So yeah, that's like my thing.
okay. I'm going to ask you a question about self tapes for other actors.
hmm
What are some of the things that actors should include in their self tape when auditioning?
So some ingredients, for example, first you need to establish your environment. The casting directors want to see you see what you're looking at.
Mm,
They want to see you see your environment. If they can see you see it, then they know that you're taking into account your environment. On the tape, that's how you book the room. Um, use That's how I booked Her with Love. I mean,
mhm.
honestly, it was a perfect tape. I mean, I have another tape that I put out where I made it to the producers room for Outer Banks,
Oh
right?
wow. Okay.
Yeah, I made it to the producers room. I didn't get the part, but I made it to the producers room. And so those eyes were on me. Essentially, in essence, I booked the room, and it's because I established the environment. I made
Mhm.
choices. I feel like actors need to make bold choices in their self tapes. If a casting director has to watch 300 tapes of everyone saying the same thing, how do you make yourself different?
Right.
So with me, there are different ways. I make myself different with minute, subtle, detailed movements that make things more human, or or props, you know. But with detailed movements, I do things that every time I do a self tape, my goal is how can I do something that no one's seen.
Mhm.
Like I had an audition for Google where Google Pixel where I was some food delivery guy and I had to go in the elevator. For my audition, I literally levitated out of the screen. Like I literally went down as if I was going in the elevator. Like I turned my back to the camera, I pressed the
Yeah.
button, turned around, and went down and levitated out the camera. Was it goofy? Of course. Did it get me a
Yeah.
callback? Absolutely.
It helps you
Right.
stand out.
Because it's within the first 30 seconds you want to make a choice that the
Mhm.
casting hasn't seen that is unique. They want to see you be free. They want to see you make choices. So your environment, make choices that you don't think anyone else is making. And take your beats and your pauses and have a good eye line. Have a strong eye line. Always have a strong eye line. And yeah, that's what makes that's in essence that's like a crash course on what makes a good tape.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, Now, when you receive the sides that you audition with, do you practice them alone? Do you have somebody that you rehearse with? Do you have a reader?
My mom's on the side, that's why she's laughing because it's funny because I break them down. I break them. So first off, I break them down, right? Um, I break them down. I see what it is. I start looking at the choices that I want to make. So I start, figuring out my eye line, figuring out the given circumstances, imagining where I'm at in the scene. So cool note from Tobias. Tobias dropped this to me when we were on set. He was like, "Man, when you audition like you're filming the scene."
Right.
So I'm imagining me being there and what the set looks like to know. Like I said earlier, casting directors want to see if you're seeing they want to see you see it, right? So I look for it. So I break it down, and then my mom doesn't read for me. She doesn't read. She isn't the best reader. She said that, so she's told me that herself. So a lot of the times, what I'll do is either I'll hit a friend up to record with me to read, or I record myself.
Hmm.
I act with myself. So I'll record the other person's lines and I'll leave space for what I would be saying.
Right.
And then I do it that way. Now that isn't the best, always the best. It's worked for me. I would always suggest for actors to have someone to read with you,
Right.
because that's the best solution, because people can notice when you're acting with yourself or when you're doing it electronically. But yeah, that's pretty much what I do. I get the sides, I break them down, and I scratch out my choices, what movements I want to make here, my emotional beats, um, what's my objective,
Mhm.
what I'm trying to convey.
Mhm.
My mom kind of helps me with that. You know what I'm saying? Mom Dukes kind of helps me with getting the choices that I need. It's always good to have another pair of eyes.
Yes.
Um, and then yeah, I do the take. I do a couple takes. She'll tell
Okay.
me. I'll ask her, "Hey, mom, is it castable? Yes or no?" She'll say it's castable, and then that's it. That's it. I don't overthink it. I'm a four take guy. Four takes and I'm done. Anything more than four takes, it gets stale, and you start overthinking. Your choices aren't organic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, as far as live auditions, have you had a lot of experience with that? I know you said that you flew to New York and auditioned for Spider Man, um, but have you had many other encounters with live auditions, or has the majority of it been self tape?
So the majority has been self tape, but I have had experience with live auditions,
Okay.
um, and yeah. I mean, they were good.
What do you do different when it's live opposed to self tape? And I'm going to preface that by saying, when it comes to confidence, I know there's a difference in confidence when you're in your own comfortable setting, you're recording, but then when you're in a room and you have eyes on you directly, um, what do you do to shake those nerves and to walk in there confidently and say, "This is going to be my role"?
Um, I it's changed over the years.
Mhm.
For one, I prepare my mind. Like I know how I am physically, like mentally.
Mhm.
You know, I think for a mindset for an actor, you have to be okay with failing. Like you have to be okay with looking a certain way, and you have to loosen up.
Mhm.
And so because I have a background in improv, I know what it feels like to go on stage and look dumb,
Mhm.
right? Or to look silly, or to, you know what I'm saying? Also, I've changed my mindset with confidence. Another gem that Tobias dropped to me, when we were on set together. You have to have a confidence.
Right.
You're coming in to help these casting directors. In essence, your mindset has to be, I'm coming in to be your savior. I'm coming in to do your job.
Mhm.
You've seen 300 people. I'm coming in, and that's it. You don't got to see anybody else. So
Mhm.
if I'm going into an audition, first off, if I know it's a cold read, oh, it's over with. It's over with. It's over with. I love cold reads. I love people don't like cold reads. I'm like, why not? I love cold
Okay.
reads.
Okay. Break it down for me real quick, just for the people who don't know what a cold read is. What is a cold read?
So a cold read is when you walk into an audition. You weren't sent the material prior. They give you the material. They may give you a character background, and you may tell them who you want to audition for, and they'll give you sides that correspond with that character. And so they may
Mhm.
say, "All right, here, go ahead." You have usually the amount of time you have is dependent on what position, like who you sign, like the number that you sign up as. So if you're the eighth person who came in and you're number 8, then you have 7 people to get these sides. you know so or they may give you a specific amount of time. They may say, okay, we're going to give you 15-20 minutes, go outside, study the sides, come back in. So a cold read is when you haven't seen the material before and you're doing it right there at
Wow.
the audition, and you're
Okay.
reading with someone, whether it's the casting director or they may have another actor that they have you read with, to audition with. And so to
Okay.
me, that's my time to play. I call it playing. So
Yeah.
I'm finna have some fun and I'm finna play. So I love cold read. Like I love cold reading. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you can shape and mold the character to whatever it is that you want, and you can just be loose with it instead of living in with it, whatever the guidelines are that are sent to you prior, and have to stick to that role. With a cold read, you can kind of give them something different and unique every time.
You give them they want to see. I always tell actors, even with self tapes, don't submit the tape that you think the casting director wants to see. Don't. Submit the tape that you want, that you like. And the person who gave me that gem was Raven Drummer, because I did her workshop when she came here. Shout out to Raven Drummer, one of Tyler Perry's casting directors for a while, for since the beginning. And she dropped that gem. Don't send in tapes that you think casting directors want to see. Send in the one that you like. When you watch and you're like, "Ooh, that was good." It's the
Yeah.
same way with cold reading, because 9 times out of 10, industry standard is not, they're not gonna have you come in with a monologue prepared.
Mhm.
Especially if you're a guy, especially a guy like me, who I've been working on the same top dog underdog monologue since I was in high school. So of
Mhm.
course I have it down. That's not going to be a good judge of my understanding of the text that you want me to audition for. So it's better for you to give me sides from this production so that you can see the choices that I make and my feel and understanding of the given circumstances. So yeah, I tell actors all the time, they're like, I don't like cold reading. I don't like cold. I'm like, man, put that in your bag.
Yeah.
Have fun. That's your time to create. Loosen up, you know? Think outside the box with cold reading.
Yeah. And make it a strong suit of yours. If you feel like you're weak in that area, you definitely want to spend more time there. So that way you stop saying I hate cold reading. When you say I hate cold reading, you're alerting everybody else, hey, I'm not comfortable. I'm not. This is my weak spot.
Yes,
I'd much rather do what I'm comfortable in than to do a cold read because I feel like I might mess up. So if that's you, if that's the person that's saying that, then you definitely want to sit in that space and become, continue at it until you become good at it to where you no longer have to say that anymore.
absolutely.
Yeah. Uh,
Absolutely.
I feel like you've given me so many gems in this interview, but I want to ask, what have you learned over time as an actor that has helped you get better?
Um, Free yourself from social obligation. Free yourself from social obligation. Like, as an actor, um, you have to free yourself from the weight of looking a certain way
Mhm.
when it comes to the work. There's show and there's business. There's the business side of it that, a lot of it appearance and building a brand is focused on. But when you're digging into the craft, you got to let social obligation go. You
Mhm.
know, it, Acting. I've learned that acting is a very psychological thing, but it's also like I've learned. Stanislavski, said that when you're an actor, you have to learn how to do everything over again. You have to learn to do everything over. You have to learn to walk different, talk different, be more cognizant of yourself, because we're conditioned to be so aware socially of how we look and how we are.
Mhm.
Um, in one of the books on acting by Sanford Meisner, I believe, or it was in no, An Actor Prepares by Stanislavski. He talks about how it's okay to not be polite. Don't be polite. One of the girls was doing a scene and he says, if you feel like you want to curse, curse. Don't be polite because we're up here. Because
Mhm.
that wall and you being, in essence, being so worried about social obligation is going to take away the freedom that you need to make some beautiful art.
Right.
So it's all about essentially not caring what you look like, as far as the craft. Like, just being free and walking in and being like, I'm here for the work. This is who I am. I'm here for the work. Um, because that's honesty. Because a lot of times we, like, basically take that filter out of yourself. And that goes to another thing that I've learned that's helped me become a better actor. Justin Williams said this, the writer and director of Masquerade. He said, it's not about getting it great. It's not about getting it wrong. It's about getting it honest.
Right.
That's it. It's about
Mhm.
getting it honest. And we suppress our honesty every day because of social obligation and because we want to look a certain way and because we want to filter ourselves and we don't want to be honest. And it impacts your work,
Right.
because your job as an actor is to do a hard job and to be emotionally vulnerable and raw, and it's hard for people to do because we walk around with masks on. But I think as an actor I learned to take the mask off. So being honest and being a prepared actor is something that's helped me prepare. That's it. You're only nervous because you haven't prepared.
Right.
That's the only reason you're nervous, because you have not prepared. If you
Mhm.
prepare, then you won't be nervous, and don't get nerves confused with excitement. So I've learned those things. Those things have really but preparation is the main thing. Prepare. That's something that's really helped me, because I was embarrassed in high school one time. My acting teacher embarrassed me because I didn't know how old my character was, and I hadn't even read the play that my monologue was from. And she said, "Go sit down. You didn't even do the work." And from that moment, one of the main things is always prepare.
Yeah.
Always
Yeah.
prepare.
You did
Yeah.
you didn't want to feel that feeling again.
Oh man, what? Oh man, in front of my, I was one of only three black students in the class.
Oh, oh man.
So all of my counterparts were white. So I'm like, I'm in this prestigious, performance arts school, and that's a weight on my shoulders to perform. I got to work 10 times harder than everyone around me. So
Mhm.
for her to be like, yeah, go sit down, you
Yeah.
know, um, yeah,
I you know, I didn't ask this I didn't have this question prepared for you, but just within your point of being in that school and you're one of three black kids that are going to that's attending. Um, how do you feel as far as representation is concerned within TV and film, and then also just having the opportunity to be in that space of being able to learn what you've been able to obtain. Not everybody gets that,
yeah,
and we need more representation. We need more faces that look like you and I. A lot more black and brown, Asian, Hispanic,
yeah,
other underrepresented groups. um, can you speak to the means of how important it is to have representation in these areas?
yeah. So first off, I was one of three black kids in the class. There were more black kids in the school, but
Okay.
in the class, my graduating class, I was in my graduating theater class. It was
Mhm.
about 30 of us, and it dropped, and I was one of three black students in my senior theater class graduating. Um, but speaking to representation, um, it's important. It's important. I say though, what gives me an edge,
Mhm.
as an African American actor, is my training, like my preparation. Because here's the thing, because I've done theater, so I've done King Lear, I've done Moliere, like working with classical pieces. That black and white. When you work with classical pieces, it's not about if you black, it's not about if you white.
Mhm.
When you work in classical pieces, guess what? It's about if you, it's about if you know the iambic pentameter. It's about if you're really giving your all to the role,
Yeah.
and it earns a certain respect. And I've moved through certain spaces because I could come in and be Edmund the Bastard Son from King Lear, or I could come in and I know about Moliere and I know about Tartuffe, or because I knew the stock characters from Commedia dell'arte. I moved through certain spaces because I knew this information.
Yeah.
Um, and when you do that, people can't give you anything but respect. Um, in this industry, people cannot deny knowledge and preparation and talent.
Right. Yeah.
They
Man.
can't deny it. They can try their hardest to push you out of a space,
Mhm.
but at the end of the day, when you're the guy that they call to get the job done and you can, they're going to do it. So representation is, you know, the way that you put yourself in line for us to represent us more is that training, um and immersing yourself in the craft. Because nope, to me in this industry, people can try to deny you, but you're gonna make your way to it. It's gonna be undeniable. That's why I don't worry. I just try to. I told you earlier. I just put forth good work, because
Yeah.
I know when all else fails, when there's noise around me, there's chaos, and people try to. First off, I'm protected by God. I'm guided. I'm divinely guided. That is a main thing. But other than that, when people try to lessen the representation, guess what? You're going to make it in those rooms anyway, because they can't deny the work. They can't deny good work and good talent. So I think the more that people press with preparation and wanting to be well equipped in the craft, more representation is going to happen.
Right.
Um, I mean, it's the same thing with British actors,
Yeah.
um, playing American roles, right? We talk about that all the time. And knowing friends who've gone to art school in London, you want to know the main thing? One of the main things is it's that preparation.
Yeah.
They need somebody to come in and do the job, but those people are the most prepared.
Hmm.
So that's why it doesn't matter if they have an accent, a Cockney accent, but they can come in and they can slap that English dialect on
Like it's nothing.
like it's nothing, and that's it. And it's
Yeah.
simply because it's literally the training. For example, one Ollie Charlatan, who plays Carlton in the series Bel Air, I went to high school with him.
Really? Yeah.
Yes, Ollie. I went to high school with him. We did the musical Dreamgirls together my freshman year. He was a senior. Um, but
Wow.
we went to high school. He graduated from HPVA. He's British.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's, I mean, but me and him, that's just a testament to the work, right? That's a testament to the training. Cause look at where he's at. That was largely due to the fact that we had great training at HSPVA, but it just goes to show that you make it into those spaces
If you do
because
it
you're equipped.
right.
Because you're equipped. So yeah, I would say that's how you push more for that representation. Don't even I tell actors, don't even you're gonna make it there. You're gonna make it in both spaces if you that's how I've made it in spaces where I'm one of the few black actors in the space. It's
Yeah.
because, it's the same thing with Fight Boy. I was one of the few black actors and I've done other productions where I've been one of the few on the cast list and I've been there for representation because it spanned across, colorblind casting or cross cultural casting because I was prepared. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's my take on that.
Wow. Yeah, no. Well put, well said. And you're right. You do have to be prepared, and your preparedness is what gets you into the rooming. What gets you into those spaces. It's not really about your skin color or your demographic or your class. That type of deal. Um, so you are 100% correct there. You got to put in the work. Not everybody puts in the work. Not everybody does their due diligence. Not everybody does their homework. And a lot of times, if we're honest with ourselves, we push through with the bare minimum. You know, but if you truly want this, you will do the work. You will
Absolutely.
think
You will
about
do the
this.
the bare minimum can only get you, trust me, the bare minimum, it can only get you so far.
Yeah,
It can
no,
only get you so far.
that's the truth.
Um, but you're gonna hit a plateau. And when you do, you're gonna know that it takes work and preparation
Mhm.
to get past that and to continue to elevate. So yeah.
Yeah. What's next for you?
Man, I'm still auditioning. There's actually a film here a friend of mine wrote. It's his life story, and I'm directing. It's an independent film. I'm directing it this upcoming week, and I'm also directing the season. Actually, has a sequel called Desperado, and I'm in it, but I'm also co-directing it with Malcolm.
Wow.
Um, so that's the next thing, and of course, man, just auditioning, gaining more students. I also do on-set coaching too, so I've coached a couple actresses here on set, when they're on set for their roles, and it's
Wow.
doing that more. But man, I'm literally just auditioning wherever. I want more SAG work, um, and I'm leveling up where I need to in different areas in order to do that. I always say it's just the right opportunity. It was the same thing with Hallmark. It's just the right audition, the right time, the right place, the right tape.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just letting the craft. It's a journey. I just take things day by day.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. So is that your trajectory? Acting, then directing? Are you looking to move in
Yeah.
more to directing? What about writing?
Um, it's not my ministry.
Okay.
I w- I would say this. I'm a guy where I learned to get in where I fit in, and even with acting for a while, at one point I wanted to give it up. My mom was very instrumental in being like, no, you're crazy if you think you're gonna give this up. Um, so I've had a history of trying to be a part of things and do things that weren't for me. And it take me until years later to know that what my ministry is and what my ministry ain't. But I'm smart in knowing that I want to connect with people who are just as proficient and efficient in the craft of writing as I am with acting. And so
Mm.
I've connected with people like that. And so
Okay.
directing is different. Directing is what I feel like it takes an actor to learn how to speak to actors and learn the language and
Yeah.
become professional at the language to then be able to convey the feeling or the vision to an actor as a director. And so directing is what I definitely want to do next. That's I feel like I've put in my sort of gotten my feet where I want to as far as the craft of acting, and so now I want to translate that to directing.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, Ronson, this is the part of the interview where I like to give my guests the final word, and that could be a piece of advice that was given to you, words of encouragement, or a quote that you like to live by. It could be all three, or it can be any of the three. It's up to you.
So keep God first. Um, be kind to people. Um, be a servant. Servitude is important.
Mm.
Be last in a lot of situations, so that in the end you'll be first. But it's about serving, and projecting the identity of Christ to people. Be a vessel. Be open to being used by God for whatever purpose that is for you. Keep Him in your heart. Don't give up. The only way you lose is if you give up.
Mhm.
There's this saying that I always say to myself: life's toughest battles don't always go to the stronger or faster man, but sooner or late, the man who wins is the man who knows he can.
Mm.
Right? So yeah, that's pretty much it, man. That's pretty
Okay.
much it.
Well, Ronson, thank you so much for joining. I truly appreciate your time, your knowledge, your expertise, your openness to share such knowledge with us and our audience. I'm thankful that you are willing to come on and speak to us, and you gave so many gems in this interview. It was a pleasure speaking to you, and I can really truly say that I can see you go far. You're going to go far.
Thank you.
That is for sure. You have the skill set, but you also have the knowledge and the intelligence. You can hear it just in your conversation. You know what you want, and you know that this is the path for you. Um, and yeah, I'm just honored to be able to speak to you and say I knew Ronson before he blew up.
Man, no, I'm honored to be on the platform, man. Truly, I thank you for your words, and I thank you guys. Honestly, it's truly a blessing. It's moments like these that I'm grateful to God to be able to do what I do. So thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank
That's
you.
mama's in the background saying thank
Thank
Yes.
you.
you.
Thank you, Mom, too, for pushing Ronson and keeping him on this path and making him not give up because you saw something in him. You saw the light and you knew that this is the direction he needs to follow, the path that he needs to follow. And so,
Absolutely.
Ronson, please listen to your mother. I know you're older. I know you're not, a teenager anymore, but please listen. And you will make it there. I can definitely tell you that wholeheartedly.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for
Yes.
coming.
Yes. Ronson Hawkins, everybody.